Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kits and cubs, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 678 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Thursday, June 26, 2025, and it is a gray day here at the Beaver Lodge, and it is a little cooler this morning, well, actually substantially cooler this morning, which is very, very nice because I was wilting. To use an elegant word. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver. And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. We have pretty much a single issue show for you today because, big news. We have committed to 5%. But a couple of things to touch on beforehand. And Mr. Grizzly, I usually ask you how your mental health is doing today first. But for those who've been following the feeds, they might be wondering how Lola is doing.
Much better. Managed to get some Benadryl into her.
Okay.
So I checked on her this morning. Her eye looks good. So I think it was just an allergic reaction. But the effort I went to try and get her to swallow a pill. I literally crushed one up and put it in water. She sniffed the water and went, nope. Hypersensitive smell, right? Because she's a hunting dog. So I'm like, all right, okay. So I put a hot dog in the water. Now she pulled the hot dog out, dropped it on the floor, let the water stream off, and then ate the hot dog. I'm like, okay, let's cut up a piece of hot dog and shove a pill inside. She chewed the hot dog and spit the pill out. Let's crush the pill up, take a corkscrew, pull some meat out of the center of the hot dog piece, fill that with powder, and put the meat back in. Spit the hot dog out, wouldn't eat it. I'm like, oh my God.
My God, you tried everything.
Well, I had been giving her a regimen of vitamin B every day, chewable, fruit flavored chewable. So I just say, Lola, vitamin, and she'd come right up and eat it right away because it was a sweet tasting, fruity thing. And vitamin B is quite good for dogs. So I got to figure out a way to get the Benadryl in a flavored form. Maybe a liquid form, because you can get liquid Benadryl.
Yes. Yeah, I hope that would taste good. I hope it doesn't taste like what I imagine Benadryl would taste like.
Well, you can get children's Benadryl.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
It tastes pleasant, right? It's not as strong. You just have to up the dosage, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. And now, how's your mental health today?
It's good now. It wasn't just as I was waking up. Just as I was waking up, it was doom, gloom, anxious, due to the bizarre sertraline dreams that one gets from the medication that I'm on.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, I have a Kong. Hi, pretty soon. Get a Kong. I have a Kong, and you can fill it with peanut butter and put the pill in there. Maybe that might work. Yeah, I'll give that a go.
Okay, good stuff. All right. Me, it's been well, it's a very special day here at the Beaver Lodge, kids and cubs. It's mine and Bert and Ernie's 40th day anniversary.
Oh well. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, 40 days today. So normally that could be the end of this, but of course, you know, because I always have to do things in a special way, overachiever that I am. I broke the bone. The bone didn't completely tear off, but there has a gap, and it's wide enough that it will need a little longer than that. So for all the bone to fill in. So yeah, but yeah, 40 days, and again, feeling substantially better. Walked with the boot, the most like in town that I have since I've got it. Paying for it a little bit today,
Mhm.
I must admit, but it felt good because I can almost, not exactly, but almost get around now that I can put and weight bear more than just touching it for balance.
Mhm.
Um, I can motor on these babies about 70% of the pace that I walk when I'm, like, have to go somewhere.
That's good.
So it's like, okay, just now it's an endurance thing after a while.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, I can, I'm starting to be able to motor on these babies. So, um, and yeah, so, like, for example, now it also increases my range
Mhm. Mhm.
in terms without having to call a taxi, especially when my Beaver Sweet is not home, so I can now go to the, go to the corner store and get milk. Well, now I can make it as far as the giant tiger. So that means, if we run out of toilet paper or something, I don't have to pay, an exorbitant amount of it at the corner store. I can actually go someplace where it's a reasonable price on my own. Right? It's like I don't have to pay for the convenience.
Well, that's the point of a convenience store, is that you pay extra, right? I mean,
Right. Exactly.
although I
And
find that the convenience store that I go to every day, the Quickie, the prices are for many things are the same as they would be in a grocery store. Many other things. It's like,
yeah.
oh, I'm not paying $9 for 2 ounces of mayonnaise.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
there's a lot of things that are surprisingly affordably priced and priced in line with what their competitors would price them
Yeah.
at.
Might be a location thing because there's a lot of competition in there.
I think that's the case, and their beer and wine is the cheapest around from any corner store.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the like, honest to goodness, Pilsner Urquell, which is a beer I love, it's cheaper there than it is at the corner store just down the street, but from the big American chain. The
Hmm.
Quickie, by the way, is Ottawa-based
Yes.
variety store, corner store,
One of my f
convenience store.
one of my first jobs. I
Oh,
was a
really?
paper boy and then stock boy at Quickie, got promoted to cashier.
Wow, look at you go.
Yeah.
All $3.50 an hour, I guess, at the time?
I don't remember anymore actually, but I was just so like I just like felt like the big man.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I got a job.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
oh no, I lied. I lied. There was the Arby's at which I
Mhm.
worked for about 3 weeks.
Oh,
I
yeah.
went to the job interview. I told him I'm still in high school. I said I can't work past 10. This definitely cannot close, and I can't work more than 10 to 15 hours a week because I need to keep my grades up. Because I mean, I had to get scholarships or else I wasn't going anywhere, right? As a
Right.
foster kid. Yes. Within, I swear to God, about 5 days, there's so many people calling in like this that I was like taking on shifts that I was like already like blew past that. Within like 7 days, I was closing. And that's because there was a shift that somebody wasn't there and that I didn't take, that they didn't take, and then I had closed several times, and after about, like, 3 weeks or something, like, they call me into the office and they look at me and they says, "It doesn't really seem like you want to work." I said, "Are you freaking kidding me?" And I quit on the spot. It's like, I really?
You're just not a team player. You're right, I'm not. I'm an employee.
It's like, "Damn, okay." well, then screw you. I didn't say screw you, but it was like, oh yeah, okay. And then I just like, yeah, quit. It's like, not going back.
Mm.
Oh man. It's like, excuse me, I think you mistake me for someone who doesn't respect themselves. It's like, whoa. Some news, concerning news, uh, but it seems that everything, well, not, I know, I can't say everything's all right. It's not life threatening.
Hmm.
But yesterday in the Senate, Senator Patrick Brazeau, who's a friend of the Beaver Lodge here, um, I don't know if you have it ready, Mr. Grizzly.
Yeah, I do.
This happened.
Oh, and of course it goes haywire just as I go to. It always does that.
I always get weary, regardless of political colors, when I have to rely on the goodwill of governments without some legislative pressure and some parliamentary oversight. So I don't know if that answers your question. I hope the government does a better job at it than I do.
Senator Brazeau.
Thank you very much, and oh shit.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, the sound of the Senate for the camera just goes off at that moment for those who are watching. So it's not an auditory
they just
issue.
killed him.
Yeah, they killed him.
Colleagues, I would like to thank everyone for the quick action, especially of our emergency and security personnel. So thank you very much.
So the situation does not seem to be life-threatening. That was confirmed in the news. We don't have any update more recent than 11 hours ago on CTV News. So there's no there's not anything else to add at the moment, other than what it says here, that the Senate was examined by paramedics and he seems to be recovering. The Senate proceedings were suspended for about 20 minutes. And yeah, it seems that I mean, it may have been a heat thing.
Yeah, possibly.
But we don't know. All we know is that it's not life threatening. He seems to be recovering, and that is the latest update. But obviously concerning, because all he did was he just got up and right down.
Well, and that's happened to me where I've stood up and went, uh-oh, and grabbed something to keep from falling over. That's happened to me from heat, from sheer exhaustion. And it's funny how, you might even be in an air-conditioned building, but the heat can get to you. It has like a cumulative effect. And when you go to stand up, the blood just doesn't go where it's supposed to. And
Yep.
I've had to grab on to a chair to hold myself to keep from falling over. So I'm hoping it was just a simple matter of that, right? Maybe slight dehydration. Who knows? But hopefully he's okay.
That's what. So again, just there's no details whatsoever at all. So if you see anybody taking this and speculating and like assigning reasons or whatnot, like I don't even know if it's heat. We just don't know. So woo, that's in the moment, that's scary, because I mean, I think like had he risen and had this chance to like really start speaking, was getting into thing and sort of like whoa and grab something or whatnot and then maybe fall, it would be one thing, but he just like got up and it's like, oh shit, and boom, down, which is that would make a few hearts jump.
Yes.
Jeez. Okay. On a lighter note, Mr. Grizzly, you have something that you said I should see, and I have not seen this yet. So
this is a bizarre thing that the White House put together about Donald Trump's arrival in The Hague for the NATO Summit. Just watch this bizarreness, because I don't know how else to describe it other than completely bizarre. I couldn't make that up.
No, no shoddy. No, not him. There should be no shoddy. And oh, oh, oh God. Oh, gee, oh.
So it's because what
Oh,
was it? A NATO general called him daddy, right? Was that
Mark Rutte.
Ruta? Yeah. So I think now here's the thing: Ruta was kind of trolling him, right, by stroking his ego, and the White House released this. Now we'll probably get a copyright violation later, but I don't give a shit. I don't care. It was worth it. I'll just delete it later, but like,
Is that how they celebrate Pride?
well,
Hey, Daddy.
maybe.
Oh my God. Oh, oh my. Oh, that is wrong on so many levels, in so many ways. Oh my God. That's worse than MC Homo Milk attempt at rapping.
Arnold Fearson.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
I'm like, who watched him put that video together and say, "Hey Arnold, that was a great idea. You should release that." Somebody who clearly doesn't like him because, dude, you have no rhythm. You are the stiffest, whitest person on earth. You have no rhythm whatsoever. A lot of people are like that in this world. They know their limitations, so they don't go outside of their comfort zone. But if you've ever seen that Arnold Fearson rap video, it's like cringe. Ugh. Oh my God! What are you doing?
But Donald Trump and that beat.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh God. Oh my God. That is bad. Oh, oh, oh Lord. Oh man.
I don't know if you've seen the film. Was it Ricky Stenicki? John Cena plays this fictional character that these kids growing up invented. Anytime one of them did something bad, they blamed it on Ricky Stenicki, who wasn't an actual person. So they hired John Cena to play the part of Ricky Stenicki to show up for a christening. It was not a christening, a bris. It's you got to see the film. Anyway, there's a scene where John Cena's character gets hired, and he talks to William H. Macy's character, and he says, "You're doing this. You're doing this." And it's like, what? And I'm not going to say it on the show. It's just a funny scene, and every time Trump does that, reminds me of the Ricky Stenicki scene from that movie. So if you haven't seen the film, you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you've seen the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Which film is that one again?
It's Zac Efron, John Cena, Ricky Stenicki. I can't remember what the title is, but the Ricky Stenicki is the part that stands out.
Okay,
it's quite funny.
I know I haven't seen it. So
anything John Cena is in is worth watching because the man is hilarious.
Okay, cool. Oh man. Oh gee. Okay, I'm glad we scheduled that one after the Patrick Brazo news. Because could you imagine me trying to get through
called
that
Ricky Stenicki. Ricky Stenicki is the name of the film.
Okay. Oh my God. I just like it would have been so horrible. I was like Senator Brazo. Oh my! I would have just looked like. Yeah. Thank you for putting it after. Oh my word. Okay, kids, Cubs. Today, I can't stop. I'm sorry. Today, oh God, I wish I had the clip. Hopefully, we'll find the clip of what Mark Rutte was doing because I'm sorry, but it's like when I'm hearing that, and it's like, okay, dude, like it has to have something with the Dutch sense of humor because I'm not. I'm not. Wow, because when I heard that, like the first part, I mean, we were asking yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is he like laying it on a little thick? And then I'm like walking home yesterday crutching home yesterday after going out to eat, and I have the earbuds in. I'm listening to this thing. It's like, Daddy, really?
Yeah.
Just, oh man! But again, like all the effusive, like Mike Pence is blushing.
Oh my God, yeah.
Shit.
I'm like, come on,
Mike
you've
blushes
got
at
to be kidding me.
Mike Pence is at home going, gee, maybe if I did it that way. January 6th. I don't, holy crap. Mr. Ruta. Y- I have to, in a world where I want to retain my sanity, I have to assume it has to have something with the Dutch sense of humor that he knows that Trump will just not read, and that everybody else is in on the joke but him, because the internet's forever.
Yeah.
That's video like that has a way of coming back about like 3 or 4 years from now and biting you somehow. So yeah. Okay. So, kids and cubs, the prime minister was at the NATO summit for the second day of the 2-day summit, and as expected, 5% it is.
Yeah.
We've been committed. Now, main headlines, 5%. How are we going to spend? How are we going to pay for that? What are we going to have to sacrifice? All that kind of stuff. And these are legitimate questions, but there's some additional nuance and context that goes around it. And as we were mentioning yesterday, some things are 2 for 1, and you can see a headline. Carney, if you could see it, you could possibly see a headline. PM Carney more than doubles, defense spending. And it's like, well, on paper, because there are certain things that we're already doing now that now might be included, given broader definitions and things like that. So, we have to see how things get accounted for and stuff like that. But there's possibility that stuff that we are doing for Ukraine, for example, which doesn't count towards our NATO spending, because Ukraine's not a NATO country, would now be factored in, because there's a whole now sort of like overall security of the alliance type thing vibe going on. And in that sense, then Ukraine is in NATO, and if Ukraine goes Russia, that does threaten NATO countries, right? So spending some money there is indeed in NATO's interest, right? So that type of stuff might be accounted for. Some of the stuff we do with the Canadian security establishment with CSIS, certain elements for like overall security, again, could start to be included. There's some Coast Guard elements. There's other stuff like that, right? And as Mr. Grizzly mentioned yesterday, the defense staff is the whole defense military is going to have to increase by 12,000 people still. So there's a whole bunch of their salaries and a chunk of that will happen through there over time, right? So on some, it's a doubling on paper for sure in terms of a commitment. Is it an actual doubling in real dollars, or more than doubling, I should say, in real dollars? Because there are certain things that we are doing that will now get factored in. So when you're reading the headlines and you're hearing the analysis, and it seems to, they're sort of like taking the whole amount, either to sort of make it for whatever purpose, to either to minimize or to fearmonger. Just know that there's a couple more layers to that. Also, the speed at which the money is going to be spent. We got some ideas to that. How hard and fast that 5% is every year. Well,
it's going to take
that
10 years
5%
to get to that.
Yeah, but in terms of 5% may not be 5% by the time we get there,
right?
Type thing. So there's sort of language that goes into that that indicates that, which is interesting. So it's not anything coverage that you hear is like hard and fast and like nice round numbers. Couple of grains of salt. Let's just put it that way. So the prime minister we're basically going to look at the post-event press conference here today. He opens up in French, basically saying that greater than 70 years ago, NATO was formed in the context of an upheaval of the global order to strengthen our resilience in the face of global shocks, to protect our collective peace, and to ensure the veritable truth that we are stronger together. And then he goes into it a bit and he sets the table for what's to come here.
Okay, I don't have a link. Oh no, here I got it now.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, it didn't show up in my feed for some reason.
No worries.
This is the YouTube link, the first one, correct?
Yeah, we only need one link today.
Yeah, okay, just give me a sec here while it loads, because it wasn't showing up in my feed for the longest time, and it just did. So
Okay.
bear with me, and I will have this loaded up and ready to
Wow,
go.
that took some time to get to you.
Yeah, that was weird.
It's 36 minutes.
Well, it wasn't showing up, so it might have been a stall on my end, though. Sometimes that happens.
It happens.
Okay, just a sec here, and I will cue this up and give you the video clip that you so desire.
Thank you so much. Very kind, sir.
If I can just get it to load, and here we are.
Defense investment, of course, are the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces. And as I speak to you today, Canadian troops are participating in NATO deterrence and defense missions across Central and Eastern Europe, as well as building capacity in the Middle East. As part of Operation Reassurance, Canada is leading a 14-nation strong multinational brigade with over 2,000 Canadian Armed Forces in Latvia. We're working with our allies and partners across Europe to train Ukrainian soldiers who are defending their homeland from Russia's illegal and barbaric invasion. These are the women and men we are investing in. The forces we will expand with new incentives and new recruitment efforts. Le Canada renforcera également ses capacités industrielles grâce à une stratégie vigoureuse.
Sorry, I got a weird message that's asking me to reload my page for some reason.
Oh, ignore that.
It's really weird. Okay.
Yeah.
So then he goes into, so basically just, setting the table here for what's going on. Surprised he went back into French there. I must have missed that note. What's the time step we're at, Mr. Weasley?
409 to 504.
Oh, okay. I didn't miss it. That's fine. He just spoke faster than I thought he did.
Mhm.
He then goes on in French to say, Canada will also strengthen its industrial capacity thanks to the vigorous strategy and international partnerships. Monday, during the Canada-EU Summit, we have concluded the new partnership for security and defense between both parties. This partnership is the first of the two steps leading to the participation of Canada to the SAFE initiative and the launching of the Rearm Europe program. This will permit us to reach our objectives more rapidly and at lower cost. Canada does have enormous industrial capacity that will grow significantly as our... Oh, there's a typo there. Sorry. I have no idea what that was supposed to be. Autocorrect just changed something on me completely there. But okay, yes. As our spending increases, their military resilience will buy more equipment and technology made in Canada by Canadian workers and in shipyards, in labs and shop floors right across the country. We will make drones, the icebreakers, the aerospace technologies, and much more that's needed to build a more secure world. So he goes on to talk about this report, and then he goes and talks about what we committed to for Ukraine and Kananaskis, the extra $4.3 billion in the new sanctions. And then he continues here. He closes off here.
Just a second. Some dialing music. No. Dialing music, that used to be a David Letterman thing when he would be on the show and he'd say, we're going to call somebody up. Could I have some dialing music, Paul?
Oh, yes.
Paul would play something like that. Some dialing music. It's an old school code for those of us who are old enough to remember dialing a phone.
Yes.
Canada is helping to ensure, and through our discussions, I'm very pleased with the discussions and how they evolved, that the new NATO targets, at 5% of GDP, those new NATO targets, are tailored to address new threats and challenges, and that the capabilities required to meet this moment have been the driving factors for those targets. Importantly, the trajectory and the balance of the new NATO defense pledge will be reviewed in 2029 to ensure that the commitments align with the global security landscape. Throughout Canada's history, there have been turning points when the world's fortunes have been in the balance, and each time Canada has chosen to step up, to lead on the path of democracy and freedom. We're once again at one of those moments. If we want the world of tomorrow to be shaped by our values, Canada must be ready. If we want a more secure world, we need a stronger Canada that works with our allies, and today is a very important step to build both. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Just before we go to the Q&A session,
Mhm.
who's this gentleman over the Prime Minister's, behind the Prime Minister's left shoulder?
That's David McGuinty, who's now the Minister of
Oh,
Defense.
Jesus, I know who David McGuinty is. I
Yeah.
didn't recognize him at all.
Yeah, he was one of the core three all along since Prime Minister Carney took over. That was like when he went to the White House in the meeting with Trump, he was there with Jolie LeBlanc and him.
I was just going to say, he looks like the trip might have worn on him because he looks really tired there.
Yeah, but yeah.
Because I didn't even recognize him. I know who David
Well,
McGuinty is.
well,
I've seen him a million times.
he's the Minister of Defense at a Canada-Europe summit where they have the rearm and safe thing, and then the NATO summit. So, yeah, he's pretty. Once this conference is over, he's probably ready to go.
Great. Yeah. Literally, Mr. McGuinty, please take some time off after this because you look tired, sir.
Yeah.
And not in a good way. I get it. It's this very high stress job, stressful situation, but wow,
But-
dude, like get some rest. You're not looking. You're looking tired.
But he's also probably been sprinting since the time Mark Carney became the leader until now, leading up to this event, right? This has been like he just ran an election and then immediate crunch time for him. So,
Well,
yeah.
There's a big difference between David and Dalton.
Yes.
I know they're brothers, but David McGuinty is a highly regarded MP and has been. He keeps getting reelected for a reason. He's well respected and highly regarded, and he actually has done a lot of work for his constituency in his riding. PNC bio says right here, he's my MP. So if you want to talk about that, PNC, and let us know your opinion, because I've talked to a lot of people who said the same thing. He's a good man. He does good work. He does what he can for his constituency. I mean, you can't move mountains, but I just hope he gets the rest he's going to need after this, because he does look tired. We'll go to the Q&A section here now.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We're now going to begin the question period. We'll begin with Steve Chase. First question.
Period. Hi, it's Steve Chase for the Globe and Mail. I want to ask you to what extent you have social license, to what extent you think you have public support for what defense experts are saying would be the largest increase in defense spending since the Second World War. We're talking 7% increases a year to reach that $50 billion number. It's going to crowd out other investments. It's going to crowd out requests for healthcare transfer increases. So to what extent do you think you have public support for this?
Well, thanks for the question, Steve. Let me answer this in two ways. The first is to provide some context to the overall 5% number. 1.5% of that 5% is what's called a defense industrial pledge. And as I described very briefly in my remarks, it's much more detail in the public documents, and we can go into more detail. In fact, the Minister of National Defense can go into an exhaustive detail here. But that the industrial element of that, much of this we are already doing. This is about building the resilience. What do we do to build the resilience of the country? How much are we spending on our ports, on our transportation infrastructure? How much are we spending in order to develop our critical minerals? What do we do to make sure we have a resilient telecommunications system? These are things that actually we, as government, both federal and provincial governments, these are responsibilities we have today to Canadians, and responsibilities that, by and large, we are fulfilling. Now we're going to do a more proper accounting of that and a more strategic set of investments in that. So yes, we'll find gaps. We'll be transparent about that. We'll make up those gaps. So the overall context of the net increase in defense spending is much less than the headline from 2 to 5. First point. Very important point. But we have to show that, and we have to be deliberate and strategic about it, and we will. The second thing is what happens in terms of I'll call it the 2 to the 3.5, that number. We absolutely need to establish the political and social, to use the social license, the public support for that. It needs to be, as I indicated in my remarks, including my remarks in that room. First and foremost, we are protecting Canadians. We are protecting Canadians against new threats. I wish we didn't have to, but we do have to, and it is our core responsibility as government. And those threats, we see them, the evolving threat environment, most clearly in the Arctic, but it's also through the Arctic into Canada. And so we're taking our greater responsibilities around that. We have to be clear about what we're doing in order to achieve it. Last point. We're focused on the outcome, the result, protecting Canadians. We're driven by that, not by, with all due respect, sitting in the NATO building, by NATO accountants. And that's part of what's relevant for this 2029 review. We're going to focus on those new threats. We're going to take more of it directly in our responsibility, because they are our responsibility. They're threats on our soil, in our marine areas. And where possible, we're going to work with our partners, but we're also going to assess how well we've done, first and foremost to Canadians, whom we serve, but also to our partners. There'll be a review and there'll be an adjustment at that point.
All right. So, Mr. Grizzly, any thoughts on that?
Once again, he seems to be saying all the right things. It's a unique time in history when we have a prime minister who gets up and speaks, and you have your dyed-in-the-wool conservatives who will disagree with everything he says no matter what, just because he's not a conservative.
Right.
And I'm like, you're not paying attention, because a lot of his policies are more in line with the former Progressive Conservative Party of Canada than Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party. I'm like, look past your hatred of the Liberal Party, because some people just hate them.
Right.
I don't hate the Conservative Party. I hate the Reform Party. But if people would look past their hatred of the Liberal Party and actually pay attention to what this man is saying, this is about as centrist as you can get for whatever party politics you support.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he's saying and doing all the things I want to hear. Mm-hmm. That is going to change. Again, I still don't like Bill C-5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it at all. And there are amendments that need to be made, and hopefully the Senate will do that. But you never know. The Senate could come back and go, yeah, those amendments you put in, the ones you put in, we're going to get rid of all of them. So we don't know. But again, I'm never going to see eye to eye with any political leader on every single issue. It's just not possible. But I think he's saying and doing the right things. And right now, Canada needs to take its place in the world when it comes to NATO defense and defense of our sovereignty and our borders, and beef up spending. And he's, at the NATO Summit, talking to the EU, telling them what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
He is taking the reins. He is a world leader. Donald Trump can step aside. The adult is in the room.
Mm-hmm. So, when they're talking about social license and public support here, we have to realize when we're talking this, if we're doing this, it's about like $150 billion a year once we get there, which is a 7% increase per year from what we're spending now in 10 years. Now,
but it's not just on armament, though. Right?
Exactly. Now, because remember, there's that 3.5% and that 1.5% division. When he's talking about this part, all these other things that what he's talking about in real dollars, that's 43 billion of that 150 billion per year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's about 2 of that 7% if you do the math. So we're still looking at a 5% increase 10 years from now, every year in defense spending. Yes, and you also have to think that, compared to past performance, 2 decades ago, from 1995 to 2004, our average GDP increase per year was 2.4%.
hmm
The 10 years following that, 2.1%. And then in the last 10 years, about 1.5%, of course, because we got hit by COVID. And in that last 10 years, there was one time we did get above 5%. This was 2021 when we were bouncing back from COVID, but that was preceded by a year where we dropped by 5%,
Right.
right? So it's still a lot of money. And when we're talking about sacrifices and stuff like that, that means, there is going to come
Mhm.
it might not show up at the beginning, but there's going to come a point where there are things that we're not going to be able to do. And while it does grow the economy, if we do create a situation in which pretty much any additional benefit that we get from the economy has to go into defense, right? So these are questions that could pop up.
Well, here, according to Hugh, and Hugh would know,
Mhm.
that the period of greatest Canadian social wealth in our history was spurred by massive public investment in defense.
Exactly. So there's all the other spillover benefits as well. So when you're talking about when you get some reporting, sometimes they're just looking like, how much is it going to cost? How much is it going to cost? But they don't see, but how much are we going to get from it?
Mhm.
Right? We see that in the environment thing. How much is it going to cost to do all that? Yes, but we're creating new industries
It's
at the
going to
same
cost
time,
a lot of money,
right?
period. Right?
So, and then the cost of not doing it, the counterfactual
Mhm.
as well, right? So often the reporting focuses on just one. If you want to get a whole view, you need to look at the counterfactual and you need to, and look at all the other elements. So just, again, a lot of people want to push the panic and the fear button. They're like, just look at the number, right? So there are layers.
Yeah, there is. And as you know, the U.S. highway system only came into being so they could move nukes.
Hmm.
Right? So that statement, and I talked about that on yesterday's show, how throughout the EU, they're beefing up their infrastructure via roads, bridges, well, dams as well, so that becomes part of their NATO expenditure because the U.S. wants to move their tanks and trucks and et cetera, et cetera. Well, a lot of those vehicles are too big for those tiny little roads in a lot of European Union nations. So their expenditure towards NATO is improving their overall highway, bridge, dam infrastructure and tunnels in many cases so that it can accommodate these vehicles.
Mhm.
So as people go, oh, you're just spending money on roads. No, it's legit so that, you can actually apply it to NATO expenditures
Yep.
legitimately. And I know Trump would get, well, you should be buying our, and it's like, no, dude, we need to do this before we can do that.
Right.
We can't buy those things and move them until we fix these things first.
Exactly.
So this is our expenditure towards it, and it's legit. And like I said, a lot of this, like 3.5%
Mhm.
is going to be towards infrastructure improvements, shipbuilding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty details of it, but 3.5% will spill over into a lot of other jobs for Canadians across the nation, so that we can move the military quicker, so that we can get things done faster. It's there's a lot
Well,
under the surface that people don't fully understand.
you have to always add the concept of the stimulative effect of every dollar spent, right? And
That's
then
the
the
other
number of times that dollar trades hands.
Yeah. Well, what was it? This during the CERB, they said you give a poor person $2,000 and that money will go back into the economy because they're going to need to buy food, clothes, pay for their electricity, et cetera, et cetera. You give $2,000 to a rich person, they'll put it into an offshore account and then turn around and ask for more.
Or pay off some debt.
Yeah. So,
Right.
this money will, some people are going to get very wealthy.
Oh, yeah.
As simple as that.
Oh, yeah. Some people are
It's as
going to make
simple
a
as
shit ton of money.
Yeah. But
That's the
hopefully
greasy part.
it can actually grow and build up the middle class like we had in the 50s and 60s and 70s before it got shrunken by ever increasing CEO salaries and ever decreasing pay for the average salaried employee. because pay has not kept up to the cost of living. It hasn't.
It hasn't.
And I even see that in throughout the federal government. I look at the job offers that I get sent every day. I have a job, but I keep getting sent stuff. And I look at what they're offering to pay for some positions, and I'm like, are you guys out of your mind? That's not an acceptable wage. And it's like a minimum master's degree, and they want to pay them $55,000. I'm like, I'm sorry, that is not an acceptable wage for somebody who has earned a master's degree.
No.
Not even close.
No.
Double it, and we're talking. So again, even in the federal government, it's not big salaries in the federal government. There was people in the 70s and 80s that had federal government jobs that were paid a good salary, a good wage, and it kept up with the cost of living, but that has not increased over time. During Stephen Harper's reign, tenure, he had a program where they had 3, 6, and 1 year contracts, and they were hiring students who had just graduated, a minimum master's degree required, and they were paying them minimum wage. I'm not making this up. There was an article in The Citizen about this. I read this and I talked to people. They go, that's not true. I said, hang on. I pulled up the article and showed them. They were shocked out of their minds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, you should be shocked. You should be shocked. The federal government should not be paying master's degree individuals minimum wage. And again, this is before the minimum wage was $17. This is back, 12 years ago. What was it then?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So, and the minimum wage is not meant to be the minimum amount you can legally pay somebody. It's meant to be the minimum amount you need to live on, a basic income. Like I said, in 1980, even when the interest rates on mortgages were 17, 18, 20%, somebody working a full-time 40-hour or 44-hour a week minimum wage job was able to save enough money to get a down payment and get a mortgage and buy a house. That is not feasible today. Not even close. Mm-hmm. So I realize I've gone on a tangent here. I do that.
Okay. You have the next clip, Mr. Griffin?
Yeah, it's ready to go.
Prime Minister Carney has now asked a very interesting question.
At that point.
The follow-up question is more of a reflection on the trip and what you hope to accomplish overall here. You said the other day that Canada is the most European of the non-European countries. You came here to sign a security and defense partnership. Serious question. Mm-hmm. Is there any way, or have you given any thought to possibly trying to chart a path to joining the European Union? Obviously, it's a geographical series of countries, but they also share a philosophy about how to arrange society and how to treat individuals, and they share a lot of values with us. So, is that door completely closed to us, or is there anything like being an observer or something that we can get to? Because I have to say that question comes up a lot in talking to Canadians these days.
Interesting. I haven't heard it expressed to me by Canadians or many Canadians. So the short answer is no. That's not the intent. That's not the pathway we're on. But much of what you said in your question, I would subscribe to, which is that most European and non-European nations. That's not necessarily a comment about the historical makeup of the country, but it's the relative value set, the value on liberty, the value on democracy, the importance of solidarity. We have similar social welfare systems. The importance we put on sustainability, our ability to mutualize, in other words, to work with others and protect, our belief in a rules-based international system, which the footprint of that is shrinking, but it's not immaterial, and we're helping to build that with Europe. And the way we see it, if I could frame it, final comment, and this could be a bigger discussion at the right point. Europe, part of what Europe is focused on as members of the European Union is a so-called ever closer union. We're looking for a closer partnership with that union. So yes, we cooperate much more clearly and broadly to our mutual benefit, but not as a member, but along that continuum. That starts to answer. I don't think that's a final answer to your question, but it's a very it's an important element of building out the system, the way I would say.
Hi, Mr. Carney. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Previously, you've spoken about the idea that Canadians will need to make sacrifices to pay for defense spending. Can you outline what sacrifices you're expecting Canadians to make?
Well, I think...
Let's just pause there for a sec. I thought that was rather interesting, considering joining the EU. And Well, I mean, it's something we've floated, and a lot of people have. Hey, look, we share a land border with a European nation.
Yep.
We are 10 kilometers away from France.
Yep.
That's Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon off the coast of Newfoundland, for those of you not aware.
And Hans Island.
Yeah. 2 islands.
And then Hans Island.
And the Hans Island is the land border.
The land border, right.
With Denmark. So, yeah, I think we can join the European Union if we so desire. Now, there would be a lot of complications with that. They have their value-added tax on everything, and there's taxation rates. There's, I would hope that if we join the European Union, part of the agreement would be, oh, yeah, you need a UBI, and you got to pay your people more money. Like increase the minimum wage to a living wage, number one, UBI,
Yep.
Things like that. In order for you to be a member, you have to observe these things. These are the bare minimums. And he did say we have the same social welfare contracts in place in many instances. They're not eye to eye.
Yep. But the concept that we do that.
Concept is there. So there's similarities and familiarities. So yeah, I think we could join the EU. It wouldn't be easy. There'd be a lot of work to be done. We would see our costs increase, but our lives would also improve at the same time. If, they adopted the same sort of principles and ideologies that they have for systems throughout the European Union. We'll see. Time will tell.
Time will tell. But talk about just interesting. It's like, and there are 2 instances in this press conference where the Prime Minister might have to work on his acting skills, because I cannot believe that nobody has ever mentioned it to him directly.
Yeah.
All right. Now the question that was being asked there was with regard to sacrifices that may need to be made.
Right now, the people who've been making sacrifices have been the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces, because they have not been paid to reflect what we are asking them to do. They haven't been operating with the right equipment in many cases. Many cases, their equipment hasn't been working. So the first sacrifices have been there, and we're making up for that and level setting that. And that's an important part of just what we're doing this year in terms of the increase in defense. The second thing I'd say is that the way we're looking at this, and you'll hear more about this in the coming months, that the investments we're making in defense and security, broader security, given the new threats that Canada faces, I think those, we're not at a trade-off. We're not at sacrifices in order to do those. These will be net additive. In other words, more of this will happen in Canada. More of it will help build our economy at the same time as it improves our defense, and we'll get the benefits. The question is, as we move towards later in this decade, and depending on how the threat environment evolves globally, if we are moving to the higher and higher levels of defense spending because that's necessary, then we will have to make considerations about what less the federal government can do in certain cases and how we're going to pay for it. Those trade-offs, I'm going to give you false precision around this, but those trade-offs happen towards the end of the decade into the next decade, and we will be much, much better informed. And if I can go back to Steve Chase's question, the social license element of that, there's going to be a very clear and open conversation about that based on facts and based on what Canadians want.
So in terms of the spending on the 3.5%, it seems as though you're saying that Canadians should not expect that there's going to be a substantial increase in defense spending. Of course, not saying what you've done now, but those things will be coming much later down the line.
I think it'll be, look, one of the things we're very conscious of the government, and I know you were there, I think it was described perhaps by you as the most boring and I know there's competition for that, but the most boring campaign release during the campaign, when we spent a day on defense procurement and how we were going to restructure defense procurement. And part of the reason we're doing that for several reasons. First and foremost, value for money for Canadians. Second, it was you, wasn't it?
I'll take your word.
And second, and you're in NATO. This is like really important.
I don't remember that.
And secondly, to have maximum spillovers, like benefits in Canada of that spending to get jobs and others. But thirdly, this issue about how quickly we move up, because one of the things, it's in anything, it's not just in defense. If you all of a sudden start spending a lot more money in one area, you can end up spending a lot more money on rising prices and choke points. That's part of the reason why we're cooperating more closely with the Europeans. Part of the reason why, we continue cooperation with the U.S. in the right areas, but also part of the reason why this increase will happen at a measured pace, or we'll try to do it at a measured pace, and that has that consequence. There you go.
Bonjour, M. Carney,
Right.
Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada.
So you'll notice at the beginning that elegant pivot. The real sacrifices are made by our service members, and of course, that is indeed the case because they have not had the equipment that they need to do the things they needed. When we interviewed Bonnie, she was mentioning, we have a group of people that are very creative and resourceful and everything, but they're under-resourced, and she would like to see what that type of creativity could do if it was properly resourced. Right? So now we're going to have a chance to perhaps find that out. This thing here, again, seems to be indicating clearly that the bigger parts of the money will be more backloaded, which in one sense case is obvious if you stop to think about it, because if the big pieces that we would buy, like submarines and other type stuff, if there's payment on delivery, those are big ticket items and they come later, especially for things for which a procurement process hasn't even been started yet. Right?
Mhm.
So some of those big chunks are going to come later. So he's really looking at this in a 10-year period, in the sense that, we're spending this $9 billion now. That's going to generate some activity and some extra economic activity. And then we're going to start doing some of the additional infrastructure stuff that we need. And that's going to build more economic activity. And by that time, we'll have signed some agreements, maybe with our European partners, to do some more simple things like munitions or drones or whatnot, and set that up over here, or to supply metal for things, or, resources for things. And that comes up there, and when you add all the layers, eventually you'll get to the where you're going to be spending the bigger money on the bigger ticket items, but you will already have had some economic generative effect from all the stuff that you're doing before to prepare from that.
Right.
Right. If you plan that in layers. So he really is thinking economy all the time, and he's thinking in 10-year chunks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. 5 and 10-year chunks, rather than just next week or the next election cycle here, which is something we've needed for so long. As Hugh says, and as we mentioned, right, the amount on salaries alone, right, is, and then again, if we're including, the pensions and all that kind of stuff as part of that, because as we mentioned, if people know that they're going to be well taken care of, it's more likely to increase recruitment and retention, and also quality of candidate.
Oh, yes.
As well.
Being taken care of, and by that they mean have a commensurate salary, number one, to afford to live, right? Yeah. And have the tools you need to.
Of injury or anything of the sort, that medical care will be there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you add all of that together and you provide people with certainty, it changes the game. Right. So there's going to be, as Kit Hughes says, that's going to be a huge chunk of the money when you count the bodies and, you put all of that there. So the other thing, though, is those numbers that we're looking at, $150 billion. Yes, it comes later and whatnot, and it does have a generative effect. But 5% of GDP is going to be what GDP is at that time. And if we get the benefit of all that generative effect, then it becomes more than 150 billion when we get to 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. So when we're looking at numbers that far out 10 years from now with all the things that could happen, wrenches that can happen and all that kind of stuff, it gets very hard to make definitive statements. So again, the people that are commenting with extreme confidence that this is what it's going to mean, good or bad, again, Salt Lake. Right? But yes, 107 billion, again, 10 years from now, and this is a number you'll hear again, and sometimes they don't say that 10 years from now, when that 107 billion is the 3.5% of that 5%, is more than we spend in this fiscal year on transfers, all transfers to provinces, equalization, that type of stuff, and to the territories. That's about 103 billion. So when you're looking at to compare a scale, right, it is a significant chunk of money.
Well, coming in with a hot one, Theo.
I
guess. NATO, no problem. Canadian taxpayers will cover it. 5% of our GDP, no problem. Canadian taxpayers will cover it. I mean, it's funny. It's funny. Once again, coming in hot, Theo.
Yep. Now, with that as well, however, in that response, right, when he was talking about these things, right, he's talking about trying to time things in such a way that because if all the world is going for all things at the same time, loss of supply and demand mean that the prices go up because a lot of people want what you got, so you can charge more. So trying to schedule things in such a way as to avoid choke points as much as possible, just to try to get better prices. So that part is in there too. So he's really trying to think about all the layers here. Now, again, does every plan survive first contact? We'll see. But he's got a very plan, and it is founded on very solid principles. There's no doubt about that. In French, he's asked here if there's that he's basically pointing out to him that this is still a very substantial step when we're talking about increasing money. And are you going to be asking Canadians to tighten their belt at some point in order to get there? And he responds, at this moment, right, it's not going to be bigger sacrifices because the larger amounts will come as our economy grows. We will invest in critical minerals. We will invest in icebreakers that will be built here in Canada. So for the next 2 years, it will be not as sharp, and the rate of increase will be rather slow at the beginning because we have to be prudent at the start. We have to collect data and increase industrial capacity here and in Europe first. Then he was asked if he got a sense at the summit, and this was in French. I wish the answer was in English here. If he thought that the Secretary General had done everything he could to please Donald Trump. It seems that that was the vibe he was going for, and in the process, did he lay it on too thick? So he was asked that there. So clearly, not the whole world, but I guess the general sense of how this is playing is like, dude, you might be laying it on a little for him to be asked. And there he makes his second pivot, where he says, well, I can only speak for the government of Canada, and that what we are doing for Canadians is to better protect them primarily, and then to defend our own interests and contribute to the defense of our allies in a world in which threats are unfortunately continuing to rise. And then here's the other pivot. Is it too much? We will see. We will see in 2029, for there's a moment planned as part of this agreement to review, and the spread between the totals to which we have committed and where we will be at the time will come into play. And if it's too much at that point, if 5% is too much, we will revise. So you will notice here that the pivot was made to whether or not 5% is too much and not whether the Secretary General was too much. Ever the diplomat.
Yes.
All right, Mr.
You know
Grizzly.
how to work a boardroom, so what? I mean,
I know, but I can only speak for Canada. talks about something else, and then later on in the answer, when you kind of forgot what the question was, pivots to 5% is too much. It's like, oh, okay, that's a satisfactory answer. Well, wait a minute. I was asking whether or not the Secretary General's. Hey, you tricked me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clever, sir. Very clever. Because that's a can't win answer. You can't answer that honestly. Like if he had been sitting there going like this, no, I don't think it was too much. It was like all the questions that are going to be asked right now of Secretary Rutte get asked of him. So it's like, I'm just gonna sidestep this. I see your bait. I'm walking around it. It can get you to, some people will bite at that question, and then it gets them into trouble.
Prudent au début. Il faut ramasser de l'information. Il faut augmenter la capacité en dessous.
Et on a eu l'impression dans ce qu'il lui disait aujourd'hui.
No, that was what it was queued up. That was the cue point. Oh, no.
2202?
I had it at 2002.
Oh, okay.
My bad.
There you go.
I'm mildly dyslexic with ADHD. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Jeremy Sharon, CTV News. Do you have an estimation of what 3.5% of GDP will look like in 2035?
Well, that's a great question, and there's two ways to answer it, and in both cases I'm going to say no, in effect, but it's going to take me a bit of time. And the reason is this, is that, and this is a crucial point that we have been making, the ambassadors here have been making, the ministers have been making, his officials have been making, I make in the room and in bilaterals, is the world is changing quite rapidly. We all know that in terms of the threats. The nature of warfare and defense is also changing quite rapidly. You just look at the experience on the front lines in Ukraine, drone technology, the revisions to drone technology, the integrations of drones with radar surveillance, the targeting. I mean, these are 3-month cycles, product cycles that are happening in terms of the changes. The cost footprint is potentially substantially less. It is substantially less in terms of much of what is being fought. We have not, Canada, NATO more broadly, have not yet integrated those learnings. And that's first thing. People know they need to do that, but that's part of the questions that's going to evolve over time. Secondly, the other threat environments, cyber, I'll group them under cyber, but the scale of cyber, which will only be augmented by quantum, the risks be augmented by the development of quantum, that's changing very rapidly. So we don't know how much we're going to be spending and how we're going to spend, both in terms of, I'll call it, drones are both air and battlefield tank defenses wrapped into one. So how that's going to evolve, how the cyber warfare is going to evolve, what the relative spend is going to be on that, and what's the most efficient way to do that. That's the first element. The second element is whether the threat environment itself changes, because we should spend for the environment, not for some what could be an arbitrary number. Key point. The fact that we are doing this today, the fact that we're united, the fact that the United States is fully behind this, the fact that we're working together, is going to reduce the threat environment 10 years from now. Certainly, now, we'll never be able to precisely answer that, what it would have been versus what it is there, but the deterrence element of NATO has just gone up substantially, and it's crucial. And we would really feel it if we went in the other direction.
All right. Some very, very, very good points and important points there to remember. Right? Does this money have a deterrent effect? And then how does that change the game X number of years from now? Right? When he's talking about such matters, there was a second point there, and I didn't remember it off the top of my head, unfortunately. So that was indeed a great question. When you were you look at it that way and you put it together, right? Where he's talking about there's a 5-year review point, I guess, and this might have a deterrent effect, so things on the ground may change. Now, again, things on the ground may change for that. There's also the possibility that something else happens somewhere else in the world. Yeah, which brings our attention there, right? And this again, some of these concepts here are assuming some relative constancy, right? But there could be another part of the world somewhere in the next 10 years that decides, they want to get into the game somehow, so to speak. And all of a sudden we have to, shore up things or pay attention there. So that's not an impossibility, let's just put it that way. But assuming that this has the deterrent effect and now the other world players who don't have anything going on still don't want to have anything going on 10 years from now, right? Yeah, these things are appropriate. So when we get to that 5-year point there, that number, that 5%, may no longer need to be 5%.
Well, you also have to understand,
Right.
too, the war and how we fight them has changed a lot in the last number of decades, of course, but with what's taking place in the war in Ukraine and how they are approaching their response, targeted response with drones. I mean, they're what they did to take out the strategic bombers from 6,000 kilometers away. It's pretty crazy. And I just posted a story from The Guardian. I'll just read you the headline. Anybody wants to click on the link. It's Killing Machines, How Russia and Ukraine's Race to Perfect Deadly Pilotless Drones Could Harm Us All. Pilotless. Cheap, scalable, highly autonomous, these weapons are developing quickly, and experts say they should prompt a global rethink about security. It's, it's
Indeed. So I remember what the other element was there that skipped my mind is when he said that the number in terms of the amount that we spend is tailored to the situation, not to the target. So if you can reduce the threat,
right,
then you reduce the percentage, you reduce the target. So again, so that's what I mean. These elements. When is 5% not really 5%? You never know.
Yeah.
Right. So let's take it to the next one here. This one's a shorter one, and there's Kit Linda M made a comment in the chat earlier about I'm noticing a lot of subtext here. There's some subtext in this one. That's how would I put it? Not too subtle.
My follow-up's on the Middle East. Have you seen intelligence from the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear sites, and do you know how far set back Iran's nuclear attack was, or set back their nuclear capabilities were by this attack?
Yeah, I don't have intelligence that I can share with respect to that. I will say that the U.S. attacks degraded Iran's nuclear capability, nuclear weapons capability. Crucial point here. We're now all talking about what we should be talking about, which is this was nuclear weapons capability that they were developing, and that has been degraded. And that shift with some other factors and the clarity, I think, of the U.S. actions and the intent, and I would add to that the neutrality. Might not quite diplomatic language necessarily used by the president yesterday, but it was neutral language that the president used yesterday. The combination of those factors have contributed to a ceasefire, which is in very early days, and we just add our voices to the importance of that holding, and that those ceasefires, not just holding and being developed, and that there is a more enduring de-escalation with Iran. But also that there is a ceasefire in Gaza. This does create an opportunity. We made that point. It's not just a necessity, but we made the point about what was called resolution in the G7 statement signed by the United States, the G7 statement at Kananaskis, a separate statement on Iran, that resolution should lead to reduction of hostilities in the broader region, including a ceasefire in Gaza.
So did you notice the interesting phrasing to the beginning of that answer as to whether or not he had intelligence about Iran?
Yeah, I can. What I can share with you is
I don't have intelligence that I can share.
Yeah,
I don't have intelligence.
exactly. I can't share it, but interesting the way he phrased that, because you think of who the leader of the opposition who doesn't have access to that intelligence because he doesn't have his security clearance.
But it's been degraded is not the same thing as it's been obliterated.
Well,
How is it now?
well, I got to show you something in relationship to that.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't seen this clip. I just got this clip thanks to Uncover the News, who just sent this to me. This is okay. Just watch. It's 18 seconds.
Let me read the bottom line here. President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history, and it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war.
Okay. Could just drop to your knees. Just drop to your knees. Cradle the sack. I mean, come on, dude. The most complex military operation in history? No. Ukraine just did that. He sent a bunch of bombers, which is something the Americans have done many times over. Most complex and secretive military operation in history. He was tweeting about it, for Christ's sake. Tehran knew this was coming. They had removed all of their uranium from their enrichment plants because they knew it was going to happen a week in advance. Like, nothing complex, nothing secretive. It was a bombing raid. And they sent bombers in different directions to try and throw people off the path because the generals were so concerned that this shithead, idiot president was going to tell the Iranian regime exactly when they were coming.
And then Trump yesterday alluded to, like, this is as massive and maybe perhaps more or something like that than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it's just like, okay, like, dude, you really need to stop needing to pump your own tires.
Oh
It's like,
my God.
but it's like, what is it with these people? Danielle Smith, right? And it's like, what was that claim she said? We have the worst standard of living in the world. Like, this
Why
thing is
are they
bigger
not
than
being held to
Nagasaki.
task for
This
these
thing is more
statements?
secretive and complex than, like, really? Like, and this kid Uncover says, what about the Normandy landing?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think that was a little bit more complex. History, really?
I want to swear in French. I want to swear in French. This is, you have, it's like, you have to try to not get stuck on these moments. But then again, we are only human, and some of them are just so. I don't think, you know what? I think it's not the size of the lie that's offensive anymore. It's the assumption that those of us who still think, right, will somehow swallow it. But then again, it's not tailored for us because we don't matter.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a lot of it's like when I'm sitting there like this, my first instinct is, oh my God, I can't believe he thinks I will, like, swallow that. But it's like, how, like, that's an insult. But it's like, and then I have to stop and think, that message is not made for me. He's not interested in my opinion.
No.
He doesn't care about my existence. I can't help him in any way.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that message is not from, he is not talking to me. And he's certainly not, if you're watching the show, he's not talking to you. So it's like, oh yeah.
Here we go. How to Bust a Bunker by Donald Trump. Explode the sand and lie about how great the shot was. And it's Trump playing golf and he's in a sand bunker. So
The ball's still there. No, I said would fly.
no.
It's at your feet. No, that was his ball. That was Arnold's ball.
Yeah. Donald Obama, let me tell you, that guy had a hammer on him. What? What? The president of the United States is talking about another man's penis. Do you know how bizarre that is?
How bizarre. How bizarre. How bizarre. Yeah. We are cursed with living in interesting times. I just didn't know that they would be so hilariously tragic.
Yeah. I mean, he says so much bizarre stuff. That stuff 6 months later, I'm going like, oh yeah, remember that? And it was, oh shit, we forgot all about that. And I go, it's because every day there's 100 different things that are bizarre coming out of his mouth. That you just get so bombarded, the zone is completely flooded with bizarreness.
Yep.
That it sometimes overwhelms you. And 6 months later you go, oh yeah, remember that time he was talking about another man's penis?
And the thing is that every second we start, like, we're doing it, right? Like every second we're talking about that rather than the other stuff. It's time we're not paying attention to the other stuff. But we're only freaking human.
We're only human. Yeah, we're only human.
I'm not better than that. So
No.
I'm just,
No. Freely admit
my
it.
God.
Not. No. Yeah.
I mean, all right. I wish I could do the Lucille Ball. All right. Another moment here of diplomacy on the part of the Prime Minister, because this all the questions right now have been from Canadian media, and I think this one is the first one from international media that sort of came, which is kind of interesting.
Sorry, I've just had a thing I had to correct here. I missed the last word you said.
Oh, I said this is a quote. I was surprised in all the questions that so far none had come from international media, and that this is pretty much the only one. The one that's coming.
Cue this one up right here. Here we go. Sorry about that.
On Bloomberg News. You've been in Europe several days speaking with leaders about security, and you campaigned to Canadians about rebalancing defence dollars away from the US. So I wanted to ask if you've had talks with specific European partners about fighter jets, submarines, specific big-ticket items that Canada is looking to procure.
The short answer is yes.
Can you be
on both, on fighter jets and submarines.
When
and
can we
other,
expect to see decisions on those?
With the review of the F-35, we expect to complete by the end of the summer. If we need, we'll take all the time necessary, no more, and we'll go from there.
And submarines?
That's a longer process. It runs to 2027, 2020. At least it may be 2028 before the final decision. But it's a big procurement process, and there's multiple steps. But there's lots of interest in helping us in that.
Thank you. My other question, I'll try and be fast.
That's question 4.
About the commitment to hundreds of billions of dollars cumulatively you've made today. The Parliamentary Budget Officer told us that implies high deficits unless you either raise taxes or cut major projects, social spending. So do you agree with him? And if so, how high a net debt to GDP ratio are you willing to run?
We will grow.
Is he stumbling here?
He doesn't. It's a gotcha question.
It is a gotcha question.
Do you disagree with the Parliamentary Budget Officer? Because if he says yes, then it comes something. If he says no, it's like that's the same thing as like, did Mark Rutte play it on too thick? If he says yes, if he says no, so he's got to find a way here. But this one's a blatant gotcha, and like he sees it coming clearly by the way. By it's like, this is the fourth question now. It's like,
we'll continue on there.
Grow this economy. We'll grow this economy. We'll balance our operational budget in 3 years. That's our commitment. But we will also invest in this country, including in our defense industry. Thank you.
So there's the Mark Carney that some people talk about sometimes, where you hear that if you're going to use up his time with the question, make it worth it, or else here you get the very short answer and done and curtly delivered, and we move on. But he's willing to talk.
Oh, yes.
If you ask him a good question. Don't show up with that. Because you get about, instead of getting a minute and a half of my time, you get about like 15 seconds.
Don't be a punk.
So,
I don't mean punk rocker. I mean, don't be a punk as in don't be an idiot. Don't be a fool. Don't be a,
Yeah. So,
people, and the reason I switched, okay.
Yes.
Let me give you an explanation as to why I say don't be a punk. Because at one point in time, people would say don't be a bitch. Don't be a little bitch.
Right.
I'm not going to say that. I know I just said it to explain it. Don't be a punk. Because we don't need to apply sexuality into don't be a wimp. Don't cop out. Don't be a punk.
Yep.
And again, not punk rocker. Okay.
That's something you got me to change.
Yeah.
Well, because, back in the world of the fabulous, the B word is used rather liberally.
Oh, yes.
So it's like, I need in that particular context, that was a phrase I did need to change.
It's just one of the.
It's a better phrase.
It is a better phrase because it's
actually more accurate too.
It does not apply sexuality or gender to it. It's just don't be a punk.
And it's more accurate.
Yeah. And again, nothing to do with punk rock. Punk rock is a different thing altogether. Punk rock is Antifa. Punk rock is anti-racism. Punk rock is about inclusion. Punk rock is about diversity. Punk rock is about come on out to the party.
Punk rock is Nate Pike.
Yeah. Yeah, that's punk rock. Okay, one more, and then I have to go because it's doggy walking time. Actually, it's a short clip, so I can fit this one in, and then I got to take off. And this is the last clip too, I believe, isn't it?
BC.
There's one more after. But
in your platform, you made some very specific promises related to defense procurement, including artillery and other things. I'm wondering, is that your roadmap to hit this 3.25 or 3.5%, and will it get you there? Or will you have to do additional things?
Thanks for the question. No, it's your question's on point. Those commitments, the elements that were identified in the platform, and it's obviously questions of amount, but that they would be consistent with defense spending in the low twos percent of GDP. So there's additional capacities that would need to be developed. Yeah.
And my follow-up, did you pick the 2029 review because Donald Trump will be out of office?
Will he be out of office? Oh.
In January,
I didn't
yes.
realize that. Okay. Look, it's a natural time to review. We'll have enough information at that point. I think we all recognize Canada. Well, I'll speak for Canada. We have more to do given the threats that we face. So we can see an increase in both defense spending and the defense industrial spending for the next few years. We'll lay that out in more detail as we work it through. But that's a reasonable amount of time. We'll have enough information. We can do a course correction individually and collectively at that point. Yeah.
We'll have time for one last question.
There we go.
Let's stop that one there. This was the second bit of acting that didn't. Not particularly convincing. Say, did you choose the date of the review because you knew that Donald Trump would not be there at that time? Oh, is that the date? Really? Oh, I had no idea. I say, yes, because the world's most famous central banker somehow forgot that 4 was greater than 3.5. It's if you weren't so good at your previous job, sir, that one may have worked, but
yeah. Just before I go, I want to share this webpage, and I'll put the link in the chat. I put it in earlier, but I'll put it in again. This is a fact sheet and a letter that you can print out and mail to your member of parliament, and it's from UBI Works. Onboard your MP to basic income. Print the fact sheet and letter, so you download it, both of them, and print them. Pop it in the mail, send it off to your MP. So that is on the page. So if anybody wants to grab that, feel free to do so. I put the link in the chat. And fair enough, PNC Bio. I know that exists too. I'm well aware of that. But this is people who have taken the punk rock ethos and bastardized it towards their own thing. I get what you're saying, and I no argument. I know that there are Nazi punks, and Jello Biafra from the Dead Kennedys wrote a great song called "Nazi Punks Fuck Off." It's a great song. You can find it online. It's about 2 minutes. It kicks ass. And that's how I feel about Nazis. Fuck off. Gotta go on that note. Apologies for leaving on a strange note.
This is a strange show, my friend.
Well, and I'm kind of a strange person, so I'm a strange guy sometimes. Anyway, I do have to go. Lola needs to go out for a walk, and I have to pick up some coffee because I keep forgetting to buy it at the grocery store. And I'm almost out of money anyway, so it's like, anyway, I'll see you later.
All right, my friend. Okay. And you will also notice in that response that Mark Carney, right after the previous one where he didn't have much time for that reporter, again, and the second time during the press conference, that he commends someone for a good question, right? Saying that the first one is a great question, excellent question, and it was indeed, as to where that will be in 2035, that what 5% of GDP will be then, and this question over here, where he turns around and goes, yes, that's on point. So he's not. When he gets prickly with the journalists, it's different, right, than Pierre Poilievre does. Yes, but he does get prickly with journalists. That's clearly it's clearly been established now. But like I said, not for no reason, right? All right. So let's see here. There's one last question. I think it is Murray Brewster again of CBC that comes and closes it off. And let's go into it. I'm just going to make sure I've got everything set up here for you since we're switching over. Yep, that looks good. Okay.
Mr. Murray Brewster, CBC, batting cleanup.
There you go.
Whoops. Let me fix them. The audio might not be okay there. Let's try that.
I want to pick up on a couple things that you've asked. You've been asked already about defense procurement. There are a number of legislative and authorities that the Canadian government has to be able to speed up defense procurement. Do you anticipate on some of the high-value projects using those authorities?
It's a great question. The first thing we look to do is change the machinery of defense procurement, if I can put it that way. This new defense procurement agency with Secretary of State Fuhrer is the Secretary of State responsible for that, obviously working closely with both the Department of National Defense and what's called the Department of Government Transformation, but basically Procurement Canada. So that's the first. There are elements of that, though, that we've identified where we will look to make adjustments with appropriate authority, but make adjustments to our ability to buy Canadian and our ability to buy more rapidly as appropriate.
My final question relates to the other half of the summit that was talked about, and that's Ukraine. Should Ukraine have been in the room, especially when Allied leaders were talking about it, and at the table for some of the important decisions that were made on its behalf?
Yeah, I think, well, there were no, the fact of the way the summit was organized, Murray, was that the focus was on what we've been talking about, the 5%, the nature of it, why have a review, how work together. Our big emphasis, by the way, one thing I will emphasize, I'm just going to take this opportunity, which is because the threat environment is changing globally, and for Canada, I keep coming back to the Arctic and the threat to the Arctic. That's something, our view of the threats in the High North, as High North being a term that, say, the Norwegians and the Swedes and others would use, the Icelandic countries, the whole Nordic group of countries, there's a much greater focus on that. And one of the points we're making in the room is NATO needs to take that into account as it develops its thinking about what are the responsibilities of the members, what are the capabilities we need to develop. We don't need a bunch of Black Hawk helicopters up in the Arctic, right? We need icebreakers. We need radar. We need submarines. We need people on the ground, etc. Okay, you get my point. So the point is that I use that as an example, but that was the nature of the discussion in the room and much of the nature of the discussion in the corridors, the core of the decisions that were taken. So in that regard, Ukraine, Ukraine didn't need to be part of that discussion. That said, would we have preferred, Canada have preferred a special session with NATO, with Ukraine? Absolutely. It's why we invited President Zelensky to the G7. I sat at dinner with President Zelensky last night. I had a separate series of conversations with him. I made points in the room, in this case, and a few others did, about Ukraine and what next steps. I took the opportunity to emphasize the importance of comprehensive, by which I mean all NATO members, financial sanctions against Russia. And there's a huge opportunity here. Europe's considering their sanctions this week, their 18th package. There is legislation ready in the U.S. Senate under Senator Graham's sponsorship in the U.S. It would be very powerful if they, in both those jurisdictions, EU and the U.S., joined Canada with our latest sanctions. And that would really help tip certainly the economic balance in this struggle. So yes, it would have been better to have a session. We didn't have it. But in the actual session, myself, several others made points, but the bulk of the discussion was about the core decision. Thank you.
Thank you. This was our press conference. C'est ce qui va faire la conférence de presse.
Merci. Merci.
So there you go, Kits. And in this last question and answer with regard to Ukraine, making the point that, depending of where you are, geography requires different elements when they were having this discussion. So, making some plans for the longer term, trying to take into account what would be best suited where, and then making the case with regard to the sanctions about how Canada is leading there. And on that particular note, that particular question, it's kind of important to note that we now have Chrystia Freeland, who, was probably rather central in figuring out what initial sanctions to put on and all that kind of stuff, and making the case, because just given her special relationship with regard to this, Putin has banned her and had banned her for a long time, So she's particularly knowledgeable on this file and particularly knowledgeable on finance, but now with, again, a world-renowned central banker. So if you want a team, if any nation has two people in a position of authority with the best ability to figure out which way most surgically or which buttons to press to hurt someone, another nation, economically with sanctions as much as possible, it would probably be these two. So when he's saying that he wouldn't mind it if the United States and Europe follow Canada's lead on sanctions, if they want to make this really effective, if he has indeed, found other elements that if you press on hard will make somebody say, ow, and the rest of the world joins in on them. Sanctions could potentially start to have an even greater deterrent effect on the ones that are already in place. So some good things to know in that answer. Again, based on the press conference we saw the other day, it's always important to remember that on the issue of Ukraine, as far as this prime minister is concerned, the humanitarian side of it, the human side of it alone is enough for him to make that commitment. But of course, there are other things that need to be done for other nations that would require a little more convincing. And also, about NATO Ukraine not needing to be present here at this particular case. The way that was a diplomatic answer as well, because of Donald Trump, right? Given that everybody signed on to whatever was declared for Ukraine here. Donald Trump didn't pull aside and didn't say no to it. But in the sense of probably in this case, given that a lot of this was about the 5%, which was Donald Trump's big thing that will allow him to take a victory lap of some kind, and given that Mark Rutte was doing like the heavy greasing thing, having him there could have created noise. Not that he doesn't deserve to be there, because he should be there. That's not a problem. But the fact that Donald Trump is there, and a lot of this is about assuaging the toddler. So, and trying to get through this, again, without him blowing stuff up. So he got his 5%, he got all the flattery, got all that kind of stuff. He's a happy man. And they did get the stuff that they needed, at least from him to commit to with regard to NATO. That can help. And there's some reporting that at least today, yesterday after that Donald Trump is expressing some support for NATO. Again, mercurial, believe it when it lasts, that kind of stuff. But like the G7, he hasn't left in a puff. He hasn't left, trying to make a scene. He hasn't. So in that sense, it's a win. And based on pre-summit reports, it seems that Donald Trump was going to have an opportunity to have some meetings there. Not sure if that took place, given that Zelensky wasn't there, but given that Mark Rutte was there, and they were going to have an extensive time together. And also, that actually makes me think of when we were seeing him. No, we didn't see that clip on that, but when I reported yesterday that Rutte did not feel terrible enough not having had a chance to see Trump at the G7 because Trump left early, because they would have plenty of time at NATO. Well, there you go. Plenty of time at NATO. So, overall, right? Solid press conference. Avoided gotcha questions, was able to pivot when needed, was able to be diplomatic at other times, was able to give much more substance as to like what 5% really means and how fast the money will come out. And again, maybe 5% won't be 5% because other things can change, and that there's a 5-year period where they're going to review and they're going to assess and see whether or not that number needs to be, altered in any way. It's a fairly solid performance, if you're going to call it a performance. A very solid outing, informational, lots of meat. And it's the type of things that you would want, particularly with this type of spending, because if you're going to announce that you're going to go that big, you don't want to just say, well, we've announced that and wait and see. There's plenty of things for which we do have to wait and see, right? When he's talking about the subs, that goes up to 2008. There's going to be 2008 before there's even like a semblance of an RFP for that, because there's a lot of preparatory work that goes into that type of stuff in terms of determining needs and specs and all that kind of stuff, and writing up that RFP. But RFP is request for proposals, for those. Sorry, I was using my bureaucratic jargon there. So, but there's a lot in there, so that if you're just reading the headlines, now you have a sense of the various complexities and the nuances that are behind it, and how that is not just money from the defense budget itself. It's money that's going to come from several different envelopes, and the way it's going to be accounted, and that some of that money is already being spent, had already been planned to be spent in other ways, and will now be factored in, and there are things that they were spending on now that now people are seeing the wisdom of including. So we're going to get a better sense over time, of course, because there's certain things that only time can do about what that means in real life in terms of the impact on our budget and how much room it leaves for us to doing other things, because that's always going to be the counter narrative, particularly from the NDP, perhaps from the Bloc as well. Okay, what if we're doing just that? What about the other stuff, right? What about health? What about education? What about the arts? What about So, which is a vital discussion. You have to have it, right? But you just want to make sure that you're having, you want to be equipped to be sure that conversations that will omit certain details strategically or make a particular appeal to emotion is that you have the layers that you need to understand and to put that in context, because it's not that it's bad information, right? I mean, information that's shaped to have the impact that they want, but there's still elements in that when they're asking about these things that are true and that are legitimate and that do have to be factored in. Sometimes it's about the package, not necessarily the content, right? Or the packaging, right? Or how much of some content you include versus how much of something other. But it doesn't mean that everything in all these counter narratives is negative, right? There's some very, very legitimate things in there that need to be considered. But again, you've got to the balance between the politics and the actual let's have a substantive discussion on just merits and facts. There's a play there, and the prime minister here seems to have established a reputation for wanting to have a serious conversation on the facts and not trying to over emotionalize things or make an appeal to emotion or make an appeal to fear. So when he tells you that this is something about which we need to be concerned, that you know he's not just playing you because it's not a button on which he presses just to get a reaction, right? He's giving you the straight goods on things about which we need to be concerned and things that can wait. So again, now you have an idea of the overall chessboard because we've been talking about this for a couple of days. And hopefully that will help inform you as you go through and get through the other types of information, the other narratives and the responses that will come from that. All right, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. Now, if you would like to, for example, make sure that you do not miss an episode, and because, you're very busy, you've got things to do, and sometimes you're not able to watch us in video format. Well, hey, you don't need to worry about that because we are portable. If you just scan that QR code, thanks to the Ray Girl, that will bring you to our pod page, podpage.com/the truenortheagerbeaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there and click on subscribe, we come to you in our ears-only format to your favorite podcast feed. So when you're on the go, you can take us with you. Thank you so much. We're lightweight. But we're not lightweights. All right, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, well, you can do that by surfing on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, like 18,100 at least of you have so far. Thank you so much. Slow and steady growth. We like it. So if you would like to go there, we have 3 buttons for you: like, share, subscribe. Come on over and give them a little tickle. It makes us happy when you do, and it helps us with the algorithm. Also, if you're listening to us on podcast and have the opportunity to give us some stars and reviews, that helps us with the algorithm too. So thanks for that. Now, if you would like to help us in yet another way, because we do incur some financial costs to bring this show to you, well, that QR code that just appeared in the top corner of the screen will bring you to our coffee page. That's ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. If you like what we do and you want to say add a beaver, add a grizzly, well, you can treat your favorite beaver to a nice mug of hot chocolate, or your favorite grizzly to a cup of dark and bitter coffee to get them kickstarted in the morning. We appreciate all the help. Thank you so much. Your generous expressions of encouragement do warm the heart. And once we get that warm liquid into us, warm our tummies too. Yum, 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 yum. All right. Kids and cubs, because democracy is something that you do. Again, we're going to make the Red Cross appeal. Please go to www.redcross.ca, or send an email to wecare@redcross.ca, I believe. I'm trying to do this from memory here. I should probably go and check. Or you can call the Red Cross at 1-800-418-1111 to make a donation. So yes, it is wecare@redcross.ca. I remembered correctly. And there you can make a donation. There's 2 days left, today and tomorrow, to make one to the appeal for Manitoba, where every dollar you donate will be matched by $2, one by the federal government and one by the provincial government. And that the matching period ends on June 27th. You can still donate after that, but if you want to get more bang for your buck. And with regard to the 2025 Saskatchewan wildfire appeal, that will go on a couple of other days, extra days, till June 29th. And there, every dollar becomes $2, with the federal government matching there. So if you can absolutely do that, I would very much appreciate it. It's the neighborly thing to do. All right. Words of wisdom. Well, I don't. Mr. Grizzly much better at this than I am, I think. Just remember, kids and cubs, as Timothy Snyder, Dr. Timothy Snyder told us, right? There's a lot of things that you hear in the first 48 hours, that do turn out not to be true. And there's a lot of things that are being said right now that are first for domestic audiences and for certain strategic purposes. So, again, just don't take the first interpretation that you hear. Do check with various media. And this doesn't just, apply to for what's going on in Iran and whatnot like this, but how this particular news here is going to be spun. And it's a general rule for other things too. But in certain situations, it applies more than others. Let's just put it that way. But make sure that you hear things several times from corroborated sources, and you hear it over time, because stories do tend to change, right? So, some people have a vested interest in being out first with their narrative, to have it dominate the media for a couple of days until the rest of the details can come out, right? So it gives that. People do that want a certain message to solidify in the minds of people, so that they have that thought first, and everything has to compete to try to dislodge that idea, rather than saying, okay, well, that's what I was told first, and that's what I was told second. So this seems to me make more sense. Sometimes there's a certain amount of adherence to the first idea that resonates with you, like this, and a lot of things get measured against it as a test, to find a reason to reject, and not a reason to just, this is other information, how does it compare, and then make a more rational decision, right? That's where the emotion gets in, like this, by getting you attached to the first one, like this, that then involves some cost for you to admit that maybe you didn't get it just all right, or maybe you got it wrong, right? And to be able to let something else in. So again, there are very deliberate reasons for some people to want to put out a narrative that's not quite accurate first, and these things have their basis in psychology. It's not just random, right? Or just wanting to be first to get on camera just for the clicks. There are sometimes other layers to it. So just be an advised consumer of information. All right, kids and cubs, it can be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Now, at the count of 3, can I hear you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, and 3. Oh, wow. A couple people out there who were really enthusiastic about that one. All right. Here you go. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. And just a little bit of quick news about Canadians who make us proud at the Wimbledon qualifications. Carson Branstein and both Victoria Mboko have advanced to the third round. Carson Branstein's on the court right now, Victoria Mboko later on. So hopefully we will have 2 additional Canadian women join the draw. And at the World 3-on-3 Basketball Championships, Team Canada men, unfortunately, after having had a great start with the upset of world number 6 Austria in the first match, lost their 2 matches today, and they will not advance out of pool play to the next round, but the Canadian women did. So we will be cheering them on. And I think that's all I've got for today, kids and cubs. Oh, yes. Before we go, I believe that by the time we're signing off, we have the newest Kit that has joined us. So if everything went well, Kit Saucy and Baby, hello, little one, new one. Welcome to the DAMFAM. Hope everything went well. And you are going to be so loved, kid. Ooh, you have no idea. All right, everyone, have a most beaverific day. And we will see you tomorrow with a special treat. All right. Bye, everyone.